Hello, and welcome to episode 187 of Magic Rays of Light, a podcast exploring the world of Apple TV and so much more. I'm your host, Devon Dundee, and I'm joined by my co-host, Sigmund Judge. Sigmund, it's been a few weeks, but it's good to be back with you.
Oh yes, an unplanned hiatus. The truth is, things get in the way in real life. Family, health, they come first and foremost, even above the many Apple originals that we talk about each and every episode. And, well, it is good to be back. A big thank you to everyone that reached out, including specifically Jason Vrooman, who asked what was going on and said, I really get pumped up during the intro music for your episodes. So I've missed it. So hopefully you're pumped and you're ready for this episode. There's actually a lot that's gone on since we last recorded together. Of course, the last episode was with my special guest, Chance Miller of 9 to 5 Mac. But yeah, so much that we've missed. New iPads, new MacBooks, an M5 Apple Vision Pro. Thankfully, we didn't miss the much mooted imminent Apple TV hardware launch, although I don't know how you're feeling about it at the moment, Devon, but my feeling is that it may indeed actually arrive with us early next year. What do you think?
I think Apple could have anything up their sleeve at any time. I still wouldn't rule out a December press release, but if not by the end of this year, I think early next year feels about right. Spring at the latest. There's just so much smoke around it. It has to be out there somewhere in a warehouse, just, waiting its time to shine. And, I wouldn't be surprised in the year or early next year for sure. But Apple's still giving us plenty to talk about in the world of Apple TV, including changing what that even really means, because the service that we've been talking about for the past 5 years as Apple TV Plus now has a new name. So really interesting the way that Apple rolled this out. It's still, I would say, rolling out at a phased fashion. The branding's not fully there yet, but as part of Apple's press release announcing the streaming date for F1 the movie coming in December, Apple had this little note. It says, Apple TV Plus is now simply Apple TV with a vibrant new identity. So very interesting little note there. I had to go through all of our notes for this week's segment as we're talking about Apple Originals and the service and dates and everything. Had to change all the Apple TV Pluses to Apple TV. I'm trying to wrap my mind around it because I want to be accurate and refer to it the right way, but it's going to take me a minute, I think, to get that Apple TV Plus out of my verbiage. How about you?
I'm pretty good with it. The thing that is confusing at the moment is all of the trailers that are coming out, even for shows that are debuting in January, still have this Apple TV Plus verbiage all over the teasers. So it's going to be interesting, and I am interested to know what the thought process was behind this and how quickly that change was made, because it doesn't seem as though anyone, at least, at this time of recording on the 27th of October, nothing really seems to have changed beyond the logo change in the beta. And I think that's where we're probably heading in terms of the vibrant new identity. A beautiful multicolored effect, almost like a number of magic rays of light throughout the logo now, which also kind of points to the 6 colors of Apple as well. So I quite like the new branding. I'm interested to see what this new identity also means in terms of like audio logo. HBO have their like angelic, static, wah, and we had the boom. What's it going to be now? So I'm interested to see where things go with that. In terms of the rebrand, though, you were saying, a little bit of confusion maybe, because we are going back to calling everything Apple TV, if you believe what people have posted on social media. And, there was the meme, wasn't there? I'm going to watch my Apple TV on my Apple TV, on my Apple TV, on my Apple TV. really, as funny as that is, it's kind of lazy because there is a differentiation between the free brands. You've got the hardware, which is Apple TV 4K, although I understand in the real world people aren't saying Apple TV 4K, and I do wonder how dated that name will be in the near future. Then you have the TV app, which of course includes the store, channels, and your library, and Apple TV, the all original streaming service from Apple. So to me, it's quite easy. Apple TV 4K, TV app, and Apple TV, the service. I never really had a problem with Apple TV Plus, but the reality is no one actually ever called it Apple TV Plus, apart from us and people within the Apple world. Whenever you looked at mainstream media, it was Apple TV. Do you remember a number of people kind of promoted their films as being on Apple TV? And I think Deadline at one point even had a news article about an independent film that had been bought by Apple. But in fact, no, it was just being distributed within the store. So there's going to be that confusion from time to time. And that will be interesting to see what the guidelines are for promoting your film when it does hit the store. But overall, not a lot has really changed, let's be honest.
Yeah, I think the timing of it all is interesting. It seems like maybe this won't fully be out until the big 26.1 update comes out. Maybe that will be when everything rolls together. Or maybe they're trying to time it with the release of F1 on streaming. I mean, that's going to be hopefully a big moment for the service because it's a huge film I think a lot of people will be excited to see. So it makes sense if you're going to make this kind of move to make it alongside a big title like that. For me, it's a little bit of a struggle, the nomenclature, just because we do live in this world. We talk about it every week. I try to be very precise. I think for most people, like you said, calling it Apple TV is just kind of moving the language towards where most people already are. And to me, the confusion is less of an issue with the hardware. I'd say that the service has actually surpassed the hardware in terms of people knowing about it, being familiar with it, being willing to try it. So really giving the service the most simple name makes sense. So to me, I don't think those two things are going to be too much of an issue. I do see on Apple's platforms and on third-party platforms where the Apple TV app does include a storefront as well. That could be where there would be an issue. I don't know exactly what the plan is there, if they have a different name for the storefront, but I think so many people just associate Apple TV Plus with the branding Apple TV that this is just meeting people where they are. I don't think it's nearly as big of a deal as maybe it's been made out to be, but for people like you and me, I think we're going to have to watch our pluses and make sure we're not dropping them too often.
I mean, I also think it's quite natural in the sense of how we've seen the TV app morph from this catch-all app that really was focused on editorial for all of your streaming services and recommendations for them. You know, you've got the top carousel that previewed, of course, Apple Originals, but we also saw titles from other streamers up there. And I'd say in recent months, I've noticed more and more the Apple Originals dominance in that area, and pretty much across, I'd say, the first 5 or so rows beyond continue watching and the watch list in the home area of the TV app. US at the moment, 100% originals on that top carousel. In the UK, I think there's one BBC 4 drama that is in there as well. I think it'll be really interesting just to see where the TV app goes in the future, because I don't know, I just feel like there is some amountable change about to happen. I just don't know at what turn necessarily. This did also coincide with the Apple F1 announcement that I think we should talk about first before we get into a little bit of potential news, because we've been waiting for F1 to come to Apple TV, the service, right? Because it's available in the store already and available on 4K Blu-ray as well, which is very, very cool. Been very successful on both VOD and in terms of hard copy release. Forget the movie for a moment. The movie was a teaser, I think, of what Apple had brewing with F1 all this time, because these things don't just happen, and that's why we heard whispers and murmurs. But Apple and F1, at least in the United States, about to embark on a 5-year deal.
Yes, this is the announcement that a lot of F1 fans have been waiting for, to see what exactly this is going to mean for them next season. And I would say overall it sounds very exciting. As predicted, Apple TV will be the exclusive home of F1 racing in the United States starting next year as part of a 5-year deal between the two companies. Apple TV subscribers will be able to watch all practice, qualifying, sprint sessions, and Grands Prix with F1 TV Premium included in the Apple TV subscription. So if you're an F1 Premium fan and you subscribe to Apple TV, you'll be able to get those live broadcasts from the different angles in high quality like you've been doing, but it won't be a separate subscription next season. Select races and practice sessions will be available to all for free, and Apple plans to amplify F1 through its other services, including Apple News, Apple Maps, Apple Music, and Apple Fitness Plus. And the Sports app will offer fans more ways to keep up with the action. So Apple's really taking an all-fronts approach to this. To me, what it sounds like is Apple's taking over the rights that were previously held by ESPN. That's what's going to be on Apple TV for Apple TV subscribers, and then some will be free for all. Those races that you'd be used to seeing on broadcast TV, where you have one angle, you got the commentators, and you're watching it very much from kind of a passive lean-back point of view. But if you're the hardcore fan who really wants the ability to change angles, to listen to different radio signals as the drivers are talking to their teams, all of that's still going to be available, offered by F1, and it's going to be just included with the Apple TV subscription, which is, to me, the wildest element of all of this, because that was the real unknown, was would Apple want to compete with a service from the provider itself that offered so much more, the way that, ESPN was offering something totally different experience on TV for traditional sports watchers. But now with Apple taking that into the streaming world, it kind of butted up more against the F1 Premium. And the solution is just, we've got it all. It's all included, and you pay this one thing and you get it. That's really cool, and not really the approach that I thought they'd take. I kind of expected it to be a separate subscription that Apple would offer, kind of like MLS Season Pass, but they're just bundling it in and making, I think, Apple TV even more valuable to people who love sports than ever before.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. One of the things that we know about previous bids for different sporting rights has been Apple really, wanting that immersive video element within the package and not as a separate thing. Hence why their deal with the NFL couldn't be completed, because they couldn't agree on that factor. What I think is really interesting here also is Sky produce the F1 coverage for around the globe, and it may allow Apple to be able to focus on some of the more kind of extra parts of their coverage, because they're going to be using the Sky production going forward. And Sky have got a deal to continue producing the F1 coverage, I believe, for the next 4 years. And this is a 5-year deal. So it'll be really interesting to know whether or not Apple TV would potentially take over that production on year 5, or whether or not they do a deal and buy out the Sky production should F1 prove to be popular on Apple TV. So there's so many different elements here that I'm really, really excited about. Talking about sport, we know we're getting some immersive live video from LA Lakers games soon. Live for those in LA that are lucky enough, and then replayed for us at a later date, probably a couple of days down the line. But that's really exciting. And say, this F1 coverage is really exciting. It's interesting to me also that you'd have thought quite naturally that F1 would be an add-on. And so it's really nice to see it folded into Apple TV. It's a shame MOS couldn't have done the same, although by the end of the season it pretty much is, and it has been the last couple of seasons. One of the interesting parts of the press release also was how Apple communicated how they wanted to enhance and innovate within the space.
And that's the thing that we've talked about a lot with Apple TV is the company has all these other services that people use that can tie in so well with what we're watching on our TVs. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities here to potentially grow the fan base through some of these other services that Apple has. I mean, can you imagine an F1 podcast that's being promoted by Apple in the podcast app? And then when you go to do your Fitness Plus workouts, you've got drivers there, or at least, themed workouts that they've done before, things like that. And, the ability to follow your favorite driver in Apple News and, of course, the sports app. I mean, Apple really has the ability to offer an all-encompassing experience, I think, for F1 fans here. Not only the ability to, of course, watch the races and go from maybe that casual take on it into a deeper level if you choose to, but also all these other ways to cater to fans and also bring new people into the sport. So yeah, I think there's a ton of opportunities here. I think there's a reason that F1 chose Apple to go with, because they had other opportunities, of course. F1's a growing sport, especially in the United States. I think Apple and F1 just make a good pairing here. Of course, they work together on the film, potentially a sequel coming there. And this is just, it makes a ton of sense to be the next step in their progression. And it'll be interesting to see, to me, if they continue, first of all, of course, past these first 5 years, but also in those 5 years, if Apple picks up any other regions that come available and just continue to offer that, because, of course, Apple TV is a global service. So it could be included anywhere in the world that they have the rights to do so. So I think this is really exciting. And, of course, we'll have to see when the season starts up next year what exactly that experience is going to be. But I have all the confidence it's going to be great, and that U.S. F1 fans are only going to benefit from this, which is very cool. So Apple's working with F1. They're working with Charter on immersive LA Laker games, which is very exciting. That was another big announcement. Apple's just announcing all of these partnerships, but there's one that's been rumored less as a partnership and potentially as a buyout. A company that seems to be for sale. One of those like really poorly kept secrets, I think, out there in the world of Hollywood.
I mean, David Zaslav has come out and said, hey, we're for sale, right? He's been very open with which parties are interested as well. So, we've sparked off a bidding war, and if you don't know what we're talking about Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, I think it was 5 years ago, that we talked about the Warner Discovery merger. It was big news at the time. It hasn't particularly worked out too well, at least initially, and that boat was steered. Now, it looks like, there's going to be a sale of everything from Warner Brothers IP and its production lots to its streaming back catalogue and film back catalogue to, of course, its linear TV services across the United States. The reality is, whilst a lot of people were in the bidding, including Apple, apparently, the linear TV element isn't necessarily a big pull for anyone other than, I think, Paramount Skydance. And it's going to be interesting because, if you would have had a look at Paramount Skydance merger and thought, they could buy Warner Brothers Discovery, there would be that fear of anti-competition. But we live in a different political landscape where the owner of Skydance, Paramount, is good friends with the president. So there's a possibility that Warner Discovery does end up going to Paramount Skydance. But I'm starting to think that Apple may have something brewing. Because we talked about with F1, there's obviously been a relationship brewing there over time. F1 the movie, needless to say, distributed by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers have had an amazing theatrical run this year with Sinners and F1 the movie, and they definitely have expertise there. Then you think about the successful partnership between Warner Brothers Studios and Apple. including the likes of Ted Lasso and Shrinking. When I visited the Warner Brothers LA lot, the first season of Shrinking was actually filming at the time a few years back. And then I think also we've talked previously about how the US filmmaking industry has been struggling, especially in Los Angeles. Things are starting to turn around slowly in Los Angeles, but I would love to see Apple buy Warner Discovery or buy Warner Brothers, with their IP and their lot and everything else, to really show a commitment to the Californian film industry. And I think that would be the play that Apple would take there, along with reassuring theatrical exhibitors as well and keeping Warner Brothers alive. Then you've got other links. I mean, very small. Richard Plepler, who made his name at HBO, now produces almost exclusively for Apple Originals. And I'll just say this before you get a word in edgeways, Devon. It looks like to me that, Warner Brothers will break up its legacy linear TV business from its studios, IP, and its streaming. And I think if it does that, I think the movie industry really needs saving from the likes of Netflix, who no doubt are going to be in the running as well. To me, if you look at LA especially, it's that Paramount lot and that Warner lot that are such staples of Los Angeles and Hollywood and the filmmaking process. And I look at Netflix and see how they kind of roll out their films. And don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of a lot of what Netflix put out. At the same time, their ratio of kind of wins to losses, especially when it comes to movies, probably like 1 in 50. They throw a lot at the wall, and they're a self-confessed tech company. They're not a movie and TV studio, so to speak. They really look at the art form, I think, in a way where it's storytelling, but it's analytics-driven storytelling. And you can tell that just by how much content they do throw at the wall and how little sticks. I watched the second season this past week of Nobody Wants This. And I loved the first season. The second season just felt more of the same. It felt like a viewing session with very little to get your teeth into, so to speak, and pretty forgettable, unfortunately. And I see this more and more with Netflix. So my hope is that Apple get this. The reality is it's probably going to be Paramount Skydance. They've even offered Dave Zaslav a CEO role at Paramount Skydance as part of the deal, which is interesting. So my hope is that Apple get it. And if they do, just on a presentation point of view, I think it would be wrong really to get rid of the Warner Brothers identity. And what I could see, very much like how I think F1, even though it's going to be tied into Apple TV as a service, I think it will have its own tab in the TV app, just like MOS does on that sidebar. I could see the same with Warner Brothers as well, keeping Apple Originals and Warner Brother output distinct. What do you think?
That would be really interesting. My question, I think, would be, where does HBO land in all of that? Because that's the company that's been passed around. It's had so many different people in charge of it. It's been through a lot. And, people often compare Apple TV to HBO and in terms of quality and awards worthiness and things like that. So I think that would be really interesting. I think Apple would be a great steward of it. If I'm trying to think of companies I would trust with a brand like HBO, that would be top of my list. I just don't know realistically how likely Apple is to get involved with the industry at that level. That's just a huge step from where they're at right now with Apple Originals. Apple gets to have partnerships where, they're commissioning shows. They are doing their own shows. Of course, Apple Studios is, only ramping up its output, but it's still not nearly the level of WB. That's a really, really huge undertaking. And I don't know. I just wonder if Apple really necessarily wants to be there quite at that level, because they'd also be shepherding, of course, DC Studios if that sticks around within the WB brand. They'd probably spin off Discovery, and anything in that world would probably become its own company, not be purchased as part of this, I would think, if it goes to Apple. But it just feels like it's just a really big step into that world that it'd be a huge purchase. So, I mean, I think I would much rather Apple have it than Skydance Paramount, especially if they're going to keep Zaslav at the top, because to me, part of what we would be getting from a purchase would be new leadership, which I think could be beneficial at that company. Yeah, I don't know. I just, maybe I'm thinking too small, but from what I see from Apple, I feel like they really love where they're at with the originals, and I don't know that they're going to go quite that far to like owning a full-on huge movie studio in that way.
Well, as I say, my thoughts are more hope than anything. I also think the other thing that we haven't talked about really is the acquisition of talent beyond IP and everything, right? The restoration team at Warner and the production houses and just, as I say, the large array of talent, writers, right? Such an important part of the filmmaking and television process, and yet so kind of vulnerable at this moment in time. So I guess we'll see. For now, though, when it comes to HBO Max, and see, I had to stop myself for a moment because I was like, wait, HBO Max? Of course, yeah, they changed their name to back to HBO Max. Name changes all over the board on this podcast, but it's still me, Sigmund, and still Devon. One big change, though. HBO Max has announced a round of streaming price hikes, effective immediately. Didn't see this one coming. Maybe to boost profitability ahead of any negotiations.
Yeah, this is interesting. I feel like I should have called this because they raised the price of the Disney Plus HBO Max bundle a while back, but it actually takes effect at the same time as these price hikes. So I guess Disney just wanted to give people a little bit more heads up, and HBO Max was holding off on that side of it. But yeah, this is really sweeping across any of those plans, whether it's the bundle, whether you're paying monthly or annual, you're going to see your price go up. So if you're paying for HBO Max monthly, basic with ads is going to be $10.99 a month. That's up $1. Standard is going to be $18.49 a month. That's up $1.50. So that's the middle ad-free tier. And then premium with, of course, 4K and Dolby Atmos, that's going to be $22.99 a month, up $2. And the annual plans are increasing as well. So, streaming price hikes roll on, Sigmund, and I can't even pretend to be surprised by them anymore because it's just the world we live in. I think they're going to keep going up and up, and I don't foresee this changing. But, of course, we'll continue to keep people posted as these things do come out. I mentioned Disney. No Disney Plus price hikes this week, at least. We'll keep our eyes peeled. But Disney has begun the international rollout of the Hulu branding, replacing Star in international markets as part of the company's phased merger of the Hulu and Disney Plus apps. This is another one of those branding transitions that's happening very slowly. Hulu as a service is going to continue to exist, but it's not going to have its own app anymore. It's going to be contained within the Disney Plus app. So you can still subscribe to it as its own service, but you'll have to get it from the Disney Plus app. That's coming next year. Right now, what they're doing is they're taking Hulu and those titles that used to be under the Star brand outside of the U.S., and they're just labeling those Hulu again. Like Only Murders in the Building outside the U.S. used to be considered a Star production, but it's always been on Hulu in the U.S., and so they're kind of just consolidating that and taking Hulu international the way that they planned to a long time ago and ended up pulling back on. The Disney Plus app has also been updated with a new tab bar at the top featuring a For You tab, as well as tabs for the different services contained within the app. That's Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN, depending on the user's subscription. So the ones that you subscribe to will be up there as like meta tabs above everything else. There's also a new live hub in the vertical navigation bar, as well as new metadata badges like season finale and new movie. So this is just another step towards Disney Plus becoming the one-size-fits-all streaming app from Disney. They've announced these plans. They're just very slowly implementing them. I've been living in Disney Plus for Hulu for quite some time now. I think it's fine and makes sense. I do like that they're separating out the services at the top so that you only see what you're paying for. Like as an ESPN subscriber, I don't need that tab in my app, and I'm glad that it's not going to be there. But I've been rooting for Hulu since the old days, Sigmund, when it was first formed as like, a conglomeration of all these different companies coming together to get their stuff on the web. I've been Hulu from day one, and I'm happy to see it rolling out internationally in this way.
You've been Lulu for Hulu.
I like it. All right. In addition to streaming hikes and consolidation, also one thing you can count on in the world of streaming right now is bundling. Now ESPN and Fox One are offering a streaming bundle that gives sports fans the opportunity to watch live feeds from both services for the single price of $39.99 a month. This is the first, I think, like truly not quite comprehensive, but moving in that direction, streaming bundle for sports fans. Of course, Disney was trying to make it happen with Venue, and that ended up not happening, but this bundle is available now, so this covers a lot of sports rights, at least in the U.S. For news junkies, CNN is back in the streaming video game with CNN All Access, and Sigmund, it's going to work this time. This is a service that combines the company's live video streams, on-demand documentaries and specials, and written coverage. The service costs $6.99 a month or $41.99 for the first year. CNN TV subscribers will be able to log in to access live streams, but they'll have to pay separately for full access to the CNN website. So whatever you're paying for, you can get access to, but if you want everything, this is the offering for you. This is another element of the Warner Brothers Discovery aspect that we didn't talk about was CNN, this live news service that has tried to break into streaming in several different ways, but I think kind of like Disney did with ESPN, they're just having to admit, okay, we've just got to let people pay for the linear stream. And so here it is. If you want to watch CNN, but you're not a TV subscriber, here's your opportunity to do so, and it comes with the written coverage as well.
And it's really, really interesting, as a diversion from what Paramount are doing, right? They just bought the Free Press, Wiseman, her YouTube channel, which I think was like 2 years old, if that. And they're going down that route, whereas CNN is kind of more of the same of what people are used to, I guess. Something, though, is changing, and that's at Netflix. A couple of things. Podcasts now and games.
Yeah, Netflix games, not a new concept, but Netflix games for your TV, Sigmund. This is something coming this holiday season, and it actually sounds pretty exciting. Netflix will add a new set of party games for in-person groups to enjoy together using the Netflix app and connected TVs, and your phone will be the controller. So they've got a set of 5 games that are going to be coming out this holiday season. Lego Party, Boggle Party, Pictionary Game Night, Tetris Time Warp, and Party Crashers Fool Your Friends. So Netflix continues to push into the games market. There's always been questions about, what exactly they're looking for. It seems like they're leaning more casual, but now they're going into like that party realm and getting the TV in the mix, which I think is a cool idea.
Do we know if this is actually coming to Apple TV and tvOS as well?
They said connected TV devices. I don't think they've given an exact list yet. It was a press release, so we don't know exact details. But I'd certainly hope so. Of course, being an Apple TV podcast, I think it would make a great addition. It would make sense. I feel like sometimes their TV app progressions come to tvOS a little later, but they're pushing for the holiday for this one, so hopefully it'll make that timeline as well.
Yeah, I just say that because obviously I'm still stingy after February the 14th, Valentine's Day of all days, and the TV app integration that was not to be. And also the interactive Black Mirror stuff that we never got on Apple TV. So I'd be interested to know if Netflix hold off on Apple TV and, really force Apple to add a Netflix button to the Siri remote. Let's hope that never happens. But it might.
Oh, gosh. Well, meanwhile, Netflix has also announced a deal to carry Spotify video playlists next year. So that's something we'll have to see as it rolls out in the coming year. In the meantime, Spotify users can now enjoy a completely redesigned Spotify app for tvOS with support for remote control via Spotify Connect, lyrics, and video improvements, including the ability to adjust playback speed. So it's cool to see Spotify investing in their tvOS and giving their subscribers something totally new on the Apple TV.
Yeah, very cool. Let's talk some trailers and Apple originals now. Because obviously, since we were last on, there have been a ton of trailers. Let's begin with Pluribus, because its long-awaited debut is just around the corner, Friday, November 7th. We got our first full trailer after all of the little clips and the text message service. And I got to tell you, I still have absolutely no idea what's going on, Devon. I'll just put this out there and you can tell me what you feel. To me, this feels like a one-person pandemic meets a cult, meets possibly AI, because all of the people seem to be people-pleasing to absurd levels, and I don't think they're real. What do you think?
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about them not being real. My take on it from the trailer, of course, still limited details as much as we did get to see in the trailer, was like she's the only person in the world who's not happy, and so the world has made it their goal to make her happy, including the president of the United States addressing her directly on TV. But yeah, I like what you're saying with the AI as well, and a little bit of the cultiness. That's definitely there, this obsession with Carol and making her happy. But I have to say, Sigmund, it may have been a little bit of like nervous laughter that I had during the trailer, but I was laughing just at this whole concept. And it's absurd, but in a way that I think is going to be fun to spend time with. Of course, this comes from Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad, stars Rhea Seehorn. That's a team that I think we can tell from history we can get behind, and this trailer just makes me more confident in this concept. I can't wait to see it next week. Speaking of things I can't wait to see, we also got trailers for Palm Royale Season 2, which comes out November 12th. Come See Me in the Good Light, November 14th. And The Family Plan 2 on November 21st. So a packed November for Apple Originals, and a wide variety there. You've got, I think, a little something for everybody there. And we'll link to all those trailers in the show notes. Check those out and get excited for what's coming on Apple TV, the service, in November.
Also, in terms of Apple release news, Apple have announced a ton of upcoming streaming premieres on Apple TV. They include the third and final season of Wondler on November 26th, Fraggle Rock Holiday Special, the first snow of Fraggle Rock on December 5th. I cannot wait. Of course, F1 the movie coming December 12th. Interesting little tidbit on this. Brian Tong managed to get early word after inquiring with Apple about IMAX and the IMAX presentation coming possibly to Apple Vision Pro, and also to those that want the full screen experience that they experienced in theatres. What he's been told is, as of this moment, there are no plans for the IMAX presentation, which is a real surprise to me considering the masking system that we have yet to see come into play yet on Apple Vision Pro. But yeah, just a little kind of a heads up. Obviously things can change, but that's the official word as of right now. In terms of January, we've got such a packed beginning of the year. Hijack Season 2 returns on January 14th, this time on the Autobahn in Berlin. Looking forward to how Sam Nelson is able to get out of this one, or how he even got into this predicament in the first place. Definitely some references here, because obviously we've seen so much in the world of film when it comes to runaway trains and trains rigged to explode. I'm thinking The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. I'm thinking Unstoppable, and even Steven Seagal in Under Siege 2. So I'm hoping we see plenty of references there. Then, of course, we've got Drops of God returning for Season 2 on January 21st. And finally, one that I know you're looking forward to. I mean, we're all looking forward to, but it's one of your favourites. Shrinking, with its third season debuting January 28th on Apple TV across all of your screens.
Yeah, just an incredible lineup the end of this year, early next year. And it felt like we were getting this release news just like bam, 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 one after the other. So it's cool to see it all collected here, and look forward to all of those. Of course, just as exciting for someone like me, Sigmund, in development news, Apple original period drama The Buccaneers has been renewed for a third season. We get to find out what happens to Nan after the end of the second season. They love the cliffhangers on that show, but you know what? I'm here for it, and I can't wait to see what they have for us in a season 3. Another world we're going to get to continue to live in on Apple TV is the world of Peanuts, because Charlie Brown and Friends are set to stay on Apple TV until at least 2030, with more new original series and specials. An animated feature film first announced in 2023 is also currently in production, and Apple TV will also continue its yearly tradition of airing Peanuts holiday specials free for all on select weekends in November and December this year. I'm a huge fan of the world of Peanuts, Sigmund. I've had the opportunity recently to introduce my son to that world through the Charlie Brown Halloween special. It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown, and now starting the Snoopy show. And of course, Apple TV has all of it dating back years and years and years. And I love that. And I'm so excited that this partnership is going to continue for at least 5 more years.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this partnership growing as well, especially that new original film, because from what I remember, it's going to be presented in an unconventional way. I think there was a Peanuts film through Universal, which was like 3D. I think they're going to touch a little bit on that, maybe an in-between what we've seen at Apple so far and what came before. And let's continue to talk about films. In one of the first results of Apple's overall film deal with Chernin Entertainment, the companies are working together to develop action film 5 Secrets from writers Andrew Barra and Gabriel Ferrari, based on an original short story by Julian Bagot. And the film is set in a world where the average person has 5 secrets they've never told a living soul, but get just one of them and you have control over its keeper. So, interesting, very vague. Looking forward to seeing how that one develops. And finally, Apple Original Films have landed Sponsor. This is a psychological thriller from Jason Segel and James Ponsoldt. This film follows Peter, who makes a big mistake when he gets behind the wheel after partying a little too hard, with a terrible accident leaving him with a choice: prison or a recovery program. Convinced he doesn't have a drinking problem, he begrudgingly shows up to his first meeting and searches for a sponsor. And in walks no-nonsense, charismatic yet enigmatic Jerry. Peter is convinced Jerry is the answer to his prayers, and, this feels a little bit like the inverse of what we've seen with Shrinking, right? And Jason Segel and Brett Goldstein in the last season of Shrinking. So this could be really, really interesting, I think. Production's going to take place in California, and it's going to star Jason Segel with Ponsoldt directing and Michael Bay's Platinum Dunes producing alongside Apple Studios. So Michael Bay involved. It'll be interesting to see how actiony this actually gets. Great news. I always love to see more and more Jason Segel. Of course, you can also listen to him in his Apple Fitness Plus Walk With Me session. Very, very cool there. But Devon, we've also got some more casting news.
That's right. Stop me if you've heard this one before, Sigmund, but Fiona Shaw is joining an Apple original production. This time the cast of Presumed Innocent sophomore season, where she'll play the boss at the law firm of the main protagonist, Layla, an ambitious defense attorney who takes on a high-profile case. The anthology series' second installment is inspired by Dissection of a Murder, the debut legal thriller novel by Joe Murray. As for Fiona Shaw, this will be her third role in Apple Originals, following original series Bad Sisters and Apple Original Films' Echo Valley. And I would say the same thing applies to Fiona Shaw as to Jason Segel. More of her on Apple TV cannot be a bad thing. And she has such range, I'd say, that it'll be interesting to see how she does in like this corporate role as a lawyer. I think that'll be very interesting. But yeah, Presumed Innocent is a show that I'm very interested to see what the future looks like. And I might even have to pick up the book Dissection of a Murder to go ahead and read it before the season comes out, because I'm just so intrigued by what they've got for us.
Oh, we're dipping back into physical media, Devon. Books and all, as you know, I cannot resist any Apple Original soundtrack that makes its way to vinyl, and I did it again. The soundtrack from last year's riveting limited Apple Original series thriller Disclaimer is now available for purchase in limited quantities on exclusive purple injection mold double vinyl, with a signed insert from the one and only the composer of the original series soundtrack, Phineas O'Connell. This soundtrack actually marked his first television score, and it features New York's Attica Quartet, and it's available only to fans in the US. So, of course, I had to find a friend to be able to make this happen. We'll leave a purchase link in the show notes. But yeah, looks good, and just tucked away on Phineas O'Connell's own store. So, yeah, very, very cool. Looking forward to listening to that and taking notes. Who knows, maybe blackmailing someone in the future.
I don't think that's the takeaway we're supposed to get from that show, Sigmund.
I know, but I've got the knitted cardigan and everything, Devon.
You just can't resist. Well, someone else who can't resist is Apple, and I'm talking about streaming bundles again, Sigmund, because this week Apple and Peacock announced that they're teaming up for a streaming bundle. This one's available for $14.99 per month or $19.99 per month if you want Peacock to be ad-free. It includes both Apple TV and Peacock's complimentary streaming offerings at a discount. Now, this is the part that's really interesting to me as an Apple One subscriber. Apple One Family and Premier subscribers can also get a 35% discount on Peacock, the first third-party perk for subscribers to Apple's services bundle. And as a part of this deal, both Apple TV and Peacock will offer select previews of their titles through the other service. So we're going to be seeing things like Ted Lasso on Peacock and things like Poker Face available on Apple TV. I will say, Sigmund, this became available last week. And as an Apple One subscriber and someone who already subscribes to Peacock, I thought, well, why not save this 35%? And the experience so far for signing up and transferring over has been less than ideal for me. I have to say, after how smooth Apple made the process of transitioning into Apple One with my services and transitioning into Apple Care One with my Apple Care service, I was hoping there would be some guardrails in place in terms of helping you cancel your old subscription and get things moved over. And no, I just am subscribed twice to Peacock right now. I followed the link in the TV app, paid for it. It's paid through the subscriptions and the settings app, which is all great. I love having Peacock there. But my Peacock subscription that I actually pay directly to the company is still active for about a week longer. So every time I open the Peacock app now, it says, we can't activate your subscription, call support. But because my other subscription is active, it still works. So a little bit of a transition there. I'd say that if you currently subscribe to Peacock and you want to move to the bundle, cancel Peacock, let it run out before you try to activate, because there's no guardrails in place for preventing you from paying twice. I went ahead and took the hit for everybody on that one and tried it out, but once that Peacock subscription runs out, I'm confident I'll be able to activate that and be able to get that discount, which I'm excited about. That's an interesting way to include Apple One subscribers in the bundle as well, whereas normally you'd have to pay just for Apple TV to get that bundle.
Very, very cool. I think I'm going to emigrate. You get F1, you get Peacock bundles. I think it's going to have to happen, if not just digitally. But yeah, there are ways. It'll be interesting to see how that all works out actually and rolls out. And, if I manage to figure this all out, give me an award. I think I'll have deserved one, but not as much as our Apple FYC winners over the last few weeks. Where do we want to begin?
I think we should start with the 14th Emmy Technology Awards. This is one that's close to my heart because it's not actually a TV series or film. It's actually a technology that was developed for Apple Vision Pro that Apple's now winning an Emmy for, which is very cool. So the company will be honored December 4th alongside GoPro, Insta360, Google, Adobe, and ByteDance for their work in 360-degree consumer and professional camera technology with panoramic image stitching algorithms and software for immersive video production and seamless live streaming. That's a lot of words, but I think what this is referring to is the ability in Vision OS 26 to watch 360-degree, 180-degree, and wide field of view video, and the technology that Apple developed to make sure that those videos could be displayed without any sort of warping around the edges. So a lot of work went into that, and it's cool to see it winning an Emmy Award. I mean, that's a high praise for something like this that could be considered so obscure, but I think will actually be really important going forward for these video formats.
Absolutely. Blackmagic kind of missing the mark here, but I'm sure they'll be honoured in some way next year after their immersive camera sees a live upgrade to it. Immersive cameras still rolling out to people. Certain people with pre-orders may have cancelled and waiting for the new one. But hey-ho, carrying on with Emmy news, the Daytime Emmy Awards also saw wins for Apple Originals. Well, a specific Apple Original, and that's The Secret Lives of Animals, winning Science and Nature Program, Single Camera Editing, and Best Sound Mixing and Sound Editing this year. Then we've got the Critics' Choice Celebration of Latino Cinema and Television. America Ferrera, for her role in The Lost Bus, won the Trailblazer Award. Camila Perez for Acapulco won for Breakthrough Actress. And Frida Perez of The Studio won the Showrunner Award. Very, very cool there. And finally, we've got the Produce Awards.
Yeah, I had not heard of these before. These are awards specifically for Spanish language TV and film, which I think is very cool. And several Apple Originals took away awards there, including Women in Blue for Best Historical, Political, and Social Drama, Midnight Family for Best Audiovisual Adaptation Cultural, and Veronica Echegui for winning for Love You to Death for Best Lead Actress in a Comedy Fusion. Of course, that's a posthumous award because she did pass away this year, but it's great to see her honored in this way and very well deserved. There's been a lot that's come out in terms of Apple Original since the last time we spoke, so we're going to very quickly catch up here. We've seen the premieres of Knife Edge, Chasing Michelin Stars from Gordon Ramsay, Mr. Scorsese from Rebecca Miller, Stiller and Mira, Nothing is Lost from Ben Stiller, The Last Frontier starring Jason Clarke, which is still ongoing, Loot Season 3 starring Maya Rudolph, also still ongoing, and this came completely out of the blue, Sigmund. I don't think there's been any announcement about it, and it just kind of was like slipped into the TV app and left there as a Halloween special, but The Completely Made Up Adventures of Dick Turpin, The Night of the Werebear. Now, of course, we know the production of Season 2 of this series had to halt, and they didn't end up finishing filming really anything that we thought was going to be able to come out. So I don't know if you've had a chance to see this yet, but it seemed completely done to me, and it makes me really wish that we had more of this show because it made me laugh so much, but at least we did get to see something come out of this filming.
Yeah, like this came out of nowhere and I watched it, and I'll be honest, the last couple of weeks, not a lot has been able to make me laugh, and I think I made it a secret, but I wasn't the biggest fan of the show when it rolled out, but this episode was hilarious and it makes me want to kind of revisit, maybe with a more open mind, the Completely Made Up Adventures of Dick Turpin, and I guess now the Complete Adventures of Dick Turpin. We'll have to wait and see. In terms of originals that have seen their finales, Invasion Season 3 ended in an interesting way, Devon?
Yeah, it's labeled a season finale. I don't know if we're ever going to hear anything about this show again, but we'll have to wait and see because it was very interesting the way they ended it. It seems like there's a potential for a future for the show, but we haven't heard anything solid. And based on the way it ended, I'm just really not sure where that one's going to go. Now, in terms of Apple Arcade, since we last spoke, NBA 2K26 Arcade Edition is now live, and it features the new NBA Eras mode. It's kind of cool to see the way they continue every year to update this game with new ways to play and experience different parts of NBA history. And if you've been waiting for the update for this year, that is now available.
That's everything since we last spoke, but let's talk about today with the premiere of Down Cemetery Road. When a house mysteriously explodes in the British suburbs, a concerned neighbour teams up with a private investigator to find the truth, landing them in the middle of a chilling government conspiracy. This, of course, stars Emma Thompson and Ruth Wilson. It's based on the novel by Mick Herron of Slow Horses fame and from the executive producers of Slow Horses. So very, very cool, and we'll be talking about that at a later date. Today we also see the premiere of Apple Music Live, Gracie Abrams. This is the singer-songwriter performing her latest album, The Secret of Us, and more heartfelt hits in a 82-minute concert performed at Red Rocks near Morrison, Colorado, USA. This is one of the amphitheaters that I've always dreamt of attending ever since I was like a teenager and I watched Incubus live at Red Rocks on DVD. Such a beautiful setting, and so really looking forward to checking this out from an artist, honestly, I've not heard of before this moment, but maybe that's just me showing my age. Today also sees new episodes of The Morning Show and Loot. Now, I don't know about you, Devon, but The Morning Show, I feel like, has gone completely off the rails in a really absurd way, whilst Loot has brought a heightened energy this season, full of laugh out loud moments. Every episode so far, I'd say I laughed out loud for different reasons on both of these shows. Looking forward to what's coming next, especially for The Morning Show. And then, of course, we get the finale just as Down Cemetery Road is coming. Slow Horses is going with its season 5 finale. So a great double bill there if you don't do all 4 in one hit. On Friday, we've got a new episode of The Last Frontier, a show that we haven't had the opportunity to talk about just yet, but wow. To me, this is right up there with the year's best. A lot more action than I was expecting. A lot more brooding. Really, this is kind of... I don't know if you saw the last season of True Detective on HBO Max with Jodie Foster. This is that and more, I think. Really, really special. Great for the action fans amongst us as well. Proper dad television, I would say. And then from one dad to another, The Reluctant Traveller with Eugene Levy sees its finale on Friday as well.
Tuesday, we've got even more on Apple Arcade with the release of Football Manager 26 Touch, now featuring women's football for the first time, as well as official Premier League licensing. This is a game, I think it fell off the service last year. I don't think it got a 25 update, but it's back with a huge one this year, and even that official partnership, so that is very cool to see. Speaking of football, MLS fans can watch the playoffs going on right now, and it's available to all Apple TV subscribers, so you don't even need that MLS Season Pass subscription. If you want to see who wins the tournament, you can check it all out on Apple TV. We've got a bunch of fun extras for you on this episode catching up, and you don't want to miss any of these, so of course we got links to all of them. But we've got a first look at Prehistoric Planet Ice Age, an inside look at The Lost Bus. For The Lost Bus, we've also got Jamie Lee Curtis and the cast reading passages from Paradise. Then for The Last Frontier, we've got an inside look beyond the crash. For Jane, we've got Jane Goodall on Giving New Hope. This is a scene from the series, of course, in honor of Jane Goodall, who passed away recently. And she just so happens to have narrated a new ad campaign for the Mac before she passed away as well. It's called Great Ideas Start on Mac. I believe this is the start of a series with some famous voices that we're going to be seeing. Kind of like the Think Different campaign, but it was refreshing to hear her voice in that way as well. Of course, she will very much be missed. For fans of Invasion, we've got Bringing the Apex Alien to Life in Season 3. For the morning show, we've got another take with Karen Pittman, where Alex confronts Mia, contributing to the absurdity, as you mentioned, of this season's segment. Pluribus, we've got How's the Flight, Carol, and Preparing for Takeoff. More from this viral marketing campaign leading up to, of course, the trailer that we talked about earlier. We've got a Fitness Plus artist spotlight on Selena Gomez. I don't know if this has anything to do with it, Sigmund, but she did just get married to Benny Blanco, so maybe they were bringing it around to celebrate her there. I don't know, but I love her music, so working out to it is a great idea. And we've got Phil Dunster in Time to Walk this week, so if you'd like to go for a little stroll with Jamie Tart himself, you can do so on Apple Fitness Plus. So tons of extras, lots of great things to check out. Lots of just great things happening in the world of Apple Original segment. It's fun to keep up with it, and it's been fun to recap it all with you today. But of course, before we go, each week we like to leave listeners with an up next pick, something outside of the world of Apple Originals that they can watch. What is your up next pick this week?
Oh, well, I'm going Halloween-y this time round. A show that I haven't yet seen myself, just based on the sound design of the films. This is a spin-off, and this is It, Welcome to Derry, which I know is not going to be for everyone. Body horror, period drama, psychological thriller, horror, supernatural horror. If you know anything about the films, of course, coming from the great mind of Stephen King and his original novel, set in the 60s, where a couple with their son move to Derry, Maine, just as a young boy disappears. And with their arrival, very bad things begin to happen in the town. Now, this is much delayed, this series, created by Jason Fuchs, Andy and Barbara Machete, stars Bill Skarsgård, Joshua Odick, Mikhail Karim Fidler, and I gotta say, I'm really, really looking forward to at least checking this out. I've heard mixed things. I've heard it's terrifying and the premiere is very, very good. Apparently it falls off a little bit, but I'm going in with tempered expectations. But yeah, looking forward to getting a jump or two from a clown, and this time not Art from Terrifier, which is a good thing.
I have to say, I've not seen the new It movies. I watched the original It movie when I was in middle school. For whatever reason,
Oh, wow.
I was staying the night with a friend, and his parents let us rent It, and it was on 2 DVDs at the time. You had to flip it over in the middle. But yeah, I having seen that, first of all, I will not watch Welcome to Derry because I got my fill of that when I was a kid. And secondly, in my neighborhood, we have some of those drains, the water drains built into the sidewalk that are featured in the movie, and I'll never see those the same again. So thanks to It for that. I'm going to stick with the horror adjacent theme for my pick this week. One of the scariest shows I've ever seen for a lot of reasons is Squid Game on Netflix, which of course wrapped up over the summer, but there is a version of it called Squid Game The Challenge, which is taking some of the concepts from the show and turning it into a real world competition show that, of course, would be legal for people to play and, no one actually gets hurt. But they borrow a lot of the concepts from the show, and in a way that it actually is still kind of unnerving to watch, but it's also thrilling. It's cool to see how they translate some elements from the show into something that people can play. And then, of course, the people are playing for real money. So I enjoyed the first season of Squid Game The Challenge, and it's coming back on Monday on Netflix. And Netflix is doing that cool thing that they do with their reality shows where they're rolling them out slowly. It's going to be 4 episodes this week, 4 episodes the following week, and then the finale. So you actually have an opportunity to watch it progressively and have conversations and have it be kind of a moment as you try to guess who's going to win and pick your favorites. So Squid Game The Challenge, that starts Monday on Netflix, and I'm looking forward to it coming back.
All right, well, lots and lots for you to catch up on, lots and lots for us to talk about, and we didn't even get to Apple Originals in an in-depth way this time. But there's next week with the premiere of Pluribus. Of course, you can get in contact with the show on social media via the links in the show notes, and you can reach out via our contact form, also linked in the show notes. A big, big thank you once again to everyone, to our listeners for being so patient, and of course to Federico and John at Mac Stories, who this show is part of their great podcast family. So do check out the other podcasts over at Mac Stories. But yeah, it's been a great week, Devon. It's great to be back talking Apple TV and Apple Originals, and who knows what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the year.
Well, it's an exciting time, and I look forward to covering all of it with you, Sigmund. But that's all for this week. We'll be back next week, so until then, stay safe, watch some Apple TV, play some Apple Arcade, and have a great week.